My name's Sam. Why don't you come and see my church?
And in fact, Sam's church is a youth congregation based in a skate park called LegacyXS in Benfleet.
The youth congregation started in about 2001, and it was about 6-9 months later when we went to Soul Survivor, and we saw them doing their first lift venue, which was their skate park. And combined that with the idea that we got of wanting a drop-in sort of area, like a pavement cafe, that kind of thing. And that's really, those two ideas came together, and that's how the idea for LegacyXS, this place we're sitting in now, was born. And really the vision for that has grown alongside the youth congregation itself. We didn't initially intend to build something quite this big, so the project kind of grew in sort of matched our faith, if you like. And I guess if you'd said to us when we first started, "Oh, you're going to need £500,000 to do it," we might have thought, we won't ever be able to raise that. But when the first numbers were bandied around, we thought, yeah, that's doable. We'll write to charities, we'll approach members of the congregation, etc., etc. So gradually, sort of as the numbers increased, so the amount of funding that we needed increased. But God honoured that and matched what we needed. The way in which people tend to get involved in the youth congregation these days is mainly by friendship evangelism. They will come along, they'll be skating together or riding together with their Christian friends, and then one evening they'll suddenly decide to stick around and come along to something that's a little bit, more involved in the spiritual side of things. But because of the nature of what we do in our worship, and we do try to include the use of the ramps, using the skateboards, using the BMXs, and allowing them to express themselves in worship using those things, that's, it's quite a natural transition for them. And very quickly and very soon they find themselves becoming sort of involved.
I was quite nervous when I came down here because I didn't know no one down here. I didn't have no friends. When I first joined up, I was on my own. And I come to the Sunday services that they do on a Sunday night, and I quite got into it, and I answered the questions about Jesus, and I brought Jesus into my life, and I really liked it, and I really wanted to become a Christian. And I spoke to Pete about getting baptised, and it was all sorted out, and I became a Christian. I'm glad I did it.
The analogy I would use when we are encouraging young people to use skateboards or BMXs or inline skates to worship would be, for example, liturgical dance. What we're talking about is someone using their sport, using something they enjoy, using their bodies, something they're very comfortable with using, and then focusing that towards God, either in the form of prayer or as an act of worship, and saying, instead of landing this trick for the pleasure of doing it for me, I'm going to land it for the pleasure of you. I've had a 6'3", 17-year-old lad with tears rolling down his face saying to me, "I didn't realise that my love for Jesus and my love for skating could come together and be used together." I've seen young people rising to the challenge of tackling a particularly difficult trick, or dropping in on a quite a high ramp that they're quite scared about, and we've stood there and really sort of prayed for them while they've plucked up the courage to do it, and seen them overcome something that they were scared of, they were afraid of. That's exciting in itself.
There's a big feel of being led by God through the whole project and through congregation. I mean, it's very God-based. The congregation is so strong. And it's being part of a community.
Before I came to know Legacy, I was an atheist, and a friend of mine asked me if I just want to come along to a youth club one evening, so I said it'd be fine, and it didn't really say there was anything faithful or religious to do with it. And I came along, and I just encountered this group of people who were just like normal. And drummers that quite, the things they were talking about things to do really deep inside, things to do with their faith, and things to do with God and to do with Jesus. And eventually, after a while, I became a Christian, and I've been coming since then. As I learnt more about Jesus, as I learnt more about being a Christian from the people who were leading it, they weren't really like the adults. They had something to do with it as well. But the people of our age, the teenagers and the young adults, they're the ones who will get up and preach the sermons, they're the ones who will get up and play in the worship bands.
The analogy I would use is the way in which when St Paul, for example, is going around planting churches in the New Testament, the Holy Spirit creates new churches, gives birth to new churches in every different cultural context in which Paul finds himself. And in a sense, the Holy Spirit is still doing that today in particular cultural contexts, and that's really where the sort of youth congregation fits. It's nothing to do with age, actually, it's to do with cultural difference and cultural gaps. I would want to encourage anybody who has even the slightest inkling that they might be called to do something to just act. Don't worry about what it might or might not look like, or it might or might not become. Just do something. Now that sounds a bit irresponsible sometimes, but I kind of suspect that the Holy Spirit's a bit irresponsible like that. He calls us into some really big crazy things that if he gave us the whole picture, we'd run a mile. And to be honest, if he told us what it was going to look like when we first came up with this idea, or we caught on to what he was saying, we'd have run a mile. We'd have never have done it.